The road from Bureau Junction to Hennepin, Illinois, cuts through the lowlands beside the Illinois River. Flooded naturally and by man-made dikes, it is a duck hunter's paradise, with swamps and knolls all the way to the bridge at Hennepin. The river itself fills a dual role as a stream of commerce and a playground for boatmen and fishermen. On the east side of the river, beyond the crest of the Hennepin Bridge, lies a flat, gravel-based plateau of sandy farmland known as the Hennepin Prairie. As prairies go, it is not large, a little more than 6,000 acres. But for more than a century, the Hennepin Prairie has provided harvests for the farmers of the territory. Today, corn, the traditional agricultural crop in the area, gradually is being supplemented by the development of a vital new harvest on the prairie, a $150 million steel mill. The opening chip in Jones and Laughlin Steel Corporation's bid for a major piece of the bountiful Midwestern steel market. J&L, a Pittsburgh-based corporation, bought the Prairie in 1965 in a bid to jump over its Midwestern competition into the path of the markets of the future. The initial mill, shown in the model, will occupy only a small part of the 6,000-acre site, about 300 acres in the southwestern corner. Phase 1, to be housed in this building complex, includes a 5-stand cold reduction mill and a sheet galvanizing line. Now under construction, they'll be ready for action in the spring of 1968. From these facilities will come top-quality cold-rolled steel sheets up to 80 inches in width, and a diversified galvanized product line up to 60 inches in width. Meanwhile, what's to become of the lush farms, and the hard-working farmers, and the village of Hennepin, population 391? Can rural America and heavy industry exist side by side in harmony? This study in contrasts has stirred the imaginations of sociologists, news reporters, housing developers, and the general public as the story unfolds. Hennepin faces away from the lush farmlands toward the river and is ever conscious of its heritage as a river town. In the 1600s, Father Hennepin and Father Joliet stopped to trade with the Indians on the east bank of the Illinois River at what later became Hennepin. The first building erected by white men in 1817 was a trading post. During the steamboat era of the 1800s, the village boomed as a port of call. The principal businesses in Hennepin today are 2 grain elevators which discharge corn into waiting barges for river transport. Ford Biaggi farmed the Hennepin Prairie 33 years before J&L arrived. Today, he is one of more than a dozen local farmers in partnership with J&L. They have about 2,000 acres in corn, another 200 in hay and other crops, and more than 800 acres devoted to grazing land, all under the eye of a local farmer who doubles as J&L's farm manager. As construction forces started gathering, Ford and other farmers got to know many of the workers as their paths crossed during the day. And across the road in Hennepin, youngsters still tussled in the playground. Adults had picnics in the park. And the school baseball players carried on as usual, unmindful of the roar of diesel engines wafting across the prairie. Hennepin is a quiet town, but a proud one. It has 2 churches, Catholic and Methodist. It is still free enough of traffic that a child crosses the road without real danger. Out on the prairie, after site grading, trucks began pouring 165,000 cubic yards of concrete for the foundations for the heavy mill equipment. This concrete pad, the base for the 5-stand cold mill, is 5 feet thick and contains 6,000 cubic yards of concrete. Row upon row of foundations for mill columns dotted the work area. And as work progressed on J&L's part, the people of the territory were also on the move. Several farmers who had owned property on the prairie made arrangements with J&L to buy back their houses and then move them to new locations, some to the village, some to other farm areas. Some of the owners exchanged their property for new farms further west. Others retired to watch the industrial transformation. Many of the farms had been operated by tenant farmers, and J&L offered every tenant on the property a chance to continue farming alongside the growing mill. Building a steel mill involves planning in advance for protecting the quality of air and water. A mile-deep well was drilled on the property to dispose of waste acids. Air velocity and direction were sampled. Dustfall was measured. And the water of the Illinois River was tested on a continuing basis. Hennepin is proud of its school system. Although small, only 13 in its last senior class, most of its graduates went on to college. With the coming of industry, people realized that better education could be obtained over a wider area with the benefit of a broad industrial tax base. Shortly after J&L announced its plans, a county-wide single school system was organized. One group of high school students interested in science heard about J&L's plan to survey the site for archaeological artifacts, a study being conducted by the Illinois State Museum. Several of the students volunteered to conduct a dig on the 14 Indian mounds found by museum archaeologists in a remote corner of the property. Early that first summer, they spent a week among the mosquitoes. Their loot was both disappointing and promising. 1 arrowhead and 5 broken pieces of pottery. But the scientists have earmarked other areas on the site for additional digging. Meanwhile, on the construction site, digging proceeded at a different level. This mainline storm sewer will be as much as 40 feet underground. Other lines were also being laid. More than 7 miles of railroad track were required to serve the site during construction. And a gas line was run from the north side of the Illinois River, underneath the river, up the steep hills on the south side, and more than 3 miles inland across the prairie to the J&L work area. Another major project is an elaborate water and waste treatment system capable of taking more than 7.5 million gallons of water a day from the river, cleaning it, using it in the mills, cleaning it again, and returning it to the river. The plant has been designed so all industrial wastewater, no matter where it originates, must pass through the waste treatment plant. J&L officials have stated flatly that the plant operations will not adversely affect the quality of the river water. This means recreational uses of the river may continue unchanged. Motorboating and fishing enthusiasts may pursue their activities, and the duck hunters are expected to continue their fall pilgrimages to the river swamplands, undisturbed by the frenetic activity on the construction site less than a mile away. J&L is planting for a new crop on this Midwestern prairie, and its harvest will complement the corn, soybeans, and other crops which have been sown on the Illinois countryside for generations. Yes, the farmer who stood on this lawn and gazed across the Hennepin Prairie will never again see this sight. This is what he sees now. There will be many changes affecting Hennepin, but the village has solid roots. Putnam County, with Hennepin as its county seat, once was the largest county in Illinois. The beautiful courthouse is the oldest county courthouse in continuous use in the state. Abraham Lincoln is said to have practiced there as a young lawyer. This heritage has played an important role in providing inspiration for the future, as J&L and the community look ahead to the new harvest on the Hennepin Prairie.